What's up? What's up? What's up? How are we doing out there, Color Commentary family? This is Colored Commentary. Colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. I'm your host, Marcus Lloyd, and with me, as always, is also the host, Mr. Antwuan Malone.
What's up, everybody? Yes, I'm growing my long beard. I got to change my look. No, actually, I'm not going to grow.
You're not going to change?
Although, I have thought about it. I have thought about a different.
You want a little
different
bit
facial.
Can you grow a beard?
I can.
Oh, you can? I've never seen anything close to it.
It's an odd fact that I didn't actually start growing the rest of this like facial hair. That if you're on the video, I'm pointing to where it will be, like right here.
Yeah.
Until like 29 or 30.
Wow. Yeah, like it wasn't coming in.
I didn't have to. I didn't shave my cheeks.
You just on your face
for any of my 20s.
Okay.
Neither set of cheeks were shaved.
Okay, good.
But and then right around 30, I did. So that's right when I started actually picking up a shaver to do like that kind of stuff. So
interesting.
So yeah, but it's starting to grow. It grows out now. I have to shave it more often than I used to.
You should try it. I just want to see in November. What is it? The No Shave November. I think you should try. I want to just see what this beard does. I want to see.
I got a life rule of maintenance free.
I hear that. Well, then a beard is not what you want.
That's why
sure.
we don't have
it's only for November though. It's just to try it so we can see. We have obviously Pepper. She's always talking about beards are men's makeup, right? It's how you kind of contour your face and make things. I think we were in a session the other day. I was like, I think I'm going to shave off the goatee. She's like, no. Right, because my face apparently is that offensive.
Hey, man,
and last time I did it, everybody was really offended.
Your naked chin.
They didn't want to. They were so offended when they saw the naked chin come into a meeting. They were like, "What is this?"
Put something on those on that naked chin that you got. We gonna need something on that.
Look, I almost shaved it off the other day. I was just, me, like I'll change a look and
you have changed. You've got all kind of looks.
I will wake up in the morning and be like, I'm cutting these dreads off.
Somehow it feels right. I mean, or it feels
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
Oh man, but good to be here. Today I'm glad we're kind of starting off with a little laughter, right? Because today is actually dealing with some stuff that's just been crazy.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been watching right now in this conversation and in our world can't help but get into the conversation, the ever-growing conversation around the murder of Charlie Kirk. So I understand like this already, like saying names on here and bringing the conversation in is already just a weird feeling because it feels like you can't even talk about this conversation at all.
It's so explosive right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know of, and you probably do too, several pastors who are working through conversations from their congregation because they addressed or didn't address or addressed in a way that didn't appease everyone on the Sunday afterwards. And of course the news media cycle is all over the place. There's been so much development in the story and the murder of the murder suspect and what does it all mean and what does it mean for our culture? What does it mean for Christianity and the church? Who am I going to follow? What church I'm going to belong to? Like it's just so much conversation that's going on after Charlie Kirk. I'm not quite sure whether it's purely him or if he's just the final straw in a series of things.
Okay.
That's probably a little bit of both in some ways for some people, but.
It's so interesting, though. I'm going to say this, and this is going to be completely, I'm going to say probably really offensive, but it's like everything we're going to say today is going to be really offensive.
No, we're going to try.
No, I'm going to just try. But here's what's interesting to me, right? Like particularly in the way people responded on the Sunday morning. You already mentioned, like we just went through a Sunday morning. I saw people on TikTok who are like TikTok. I saw some people on TikTok, and they were talking about. Their pastor didn't mention Charlie Kirk's name, and they're like, so as you know, I'm looking for another church. I also ran into folks just who I knew that like if you did mention it, then I'm looking for another church. It reminded me, I know it's not the same. So please do not respond to this particular trigger.
I think you're about to say the same thing that people have been saying.
Exactly what you've probably seen. It's a lot like what happened with George Floyd.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. It's what happened in the
like
opposite direction.
It's almost the anti George Floyd in the sense that it's bringing up the opposite either the opposite conversation or the opposite. The energies have changed sides.
in the liberal and conservative idea, right? Mm-hmm. And even that conversation, because we did it, we were around when that conversation was going on.
Yeah.
And we saw that in the early moments of that murder, right? That both sides came together around, this is a horrific act.
Right.
This is a horrific thing that we saw. And then within 48 hours or whatever it is, all the cycles started, and it became immediately like, oh, we had unity for just a minute around human life. And then we had to turn it into and politicize it to our benefit, right? It's like who can get to the politicization.
Yeah, interpretation.
Interpretation around a political idea. How quickly can we get there after these stories? Mm-hmm. And so when it happened with Charlie Kirk, I was like, I know it's coming, and it did not take long at all. It was pretty instant.
Yeah. So It's interesting to watch. What I think we've joked around about this, or I don't know,
not about this subject here,
not this subject, but this thing I'm going to say next. Or maybe it wasn't a joke, but I've considered myself the popular kid, and when I was in high school, and what that meant was that I was never in anyone's one circle.
Yeah.
But I was always outside those circles, but I could be in any of these circles. I could go sit with whoever, jocks or the music people, whatever. And I could be there, and it wasn't a problem, but I wasn't, that wasn't my people.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, what that afforded me an ability to do is to watch, is the people watching thing, to watch group dynamics happen in front of you. And, for me, it was really interesting. Kind of human experiment or observation, and this feels like that for me a little bit. Like I wouldn't say that I'm not in the liberal camp. I'm not fully in the conservative camp. The way Christian, even the word Christian, has been utilized in society as it's been attached to various ideas and ideologies. I'm a very particular type of Christian. And so I'm really careful with saying I'm in the Christian camp according to social definition.
All right.
I would say I'm a Christ follower. I would say that I'm a Christian in that sense. But it's interesting in church and all that, right? White, black. I'm not white, but black. So the race conversation, like, it's interesting watching the cafeteria of groups.
Okay.
Right. Respond and how group thinky we still are, because part of my revelation, observation better, in high school was, man, people just sometimes move in groups. What's the funniest thing? This is funny to me, actually. Truly.
Like haha.
It is a little haha, because one of the things that my parents, and your parents probably said the same thing to you too, say, if everybody jumps off a cliff, would you jump up?
Yes.
Right. If you are of a certain age, you have heard or said
something in that arena.
Yes.
And maybe said it to your own kids, right?
Yes, like if everyone, listen.
Yeah.
If everyone is jumping off a cliff, that doesn't mean you have to.
That's right.
But what we experience, even in the response to Charlie Kirk, is corporate cliff jumping.
Yeah.
Whichever,
write that down. I'm putting it down immediately.
Whichever group you're in, everyone's jumping off a cliff, and you feel like you should too.
Why?
And that there's something wrong.
Yeah, if you don't,
and there's something wrong with them if they don't. Right. And so I lament the murder of Charlie Kirk is lamentable because it's a life that's precious that should not have been taken, and it is certainly not and certainly not taken in a murder. But life is precious anyway. But even the horrific way that it happened, the public way that it happened, the gruesome way that we all watched it, those who chose to look at it, like that is worth lament, and it is worth taking a moment to reflect about, which takes me to number 2, which is to say, what does there's the murder, and what does the murder mean?
Yeah.
And it's question number 2 is where I think all this issue is.
Okay.
What does the murder actually mean? And there's different cliff jumpers who are choosing different answers to what it means, what this means, and what we should do about it. You know, I feel like that's where we are, and that would be fine in a way if the church was in the midst of it and divided about it. And
if the church wasn't in the midst of it, is that what you said?
That would be okay if the church wasn't. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Yeah. If the church wasn't in the midst of it. Thanks for the correction.
Yeah.
And
divided about
it. But as it turns out, there's a set of cliffs inside the Church of America, and there's groups at those cliffs.
Right.
And we're participating in the same sort of groupthink.
Yeah.
There, and it's creating this division, and the world is going to be the worse for that division in the church. And
right.
I think that's where I'm at.
I think you're absolutely right. I think going into the conversation about the unity in the space is very on brand, if you will, for us, right? Like we're constantly wanting to engage in the unity conversation and recognize that the power of the church being unified across these things, or the power of the recognition of that there's really one. It's hard for me to say there's really just one camp to cliff dive off of or cliff jump off of, but I think that's part of what submitting your life to this work, submitting your life to Christ is the ultimate cliff jump, right? Where you go, this is the cliff I'm jumping off of, and I'm leaving the other things behind. But for whatever reason, in our American context about church particularly, we don't see a kind of unity in Christ as something that is easy to find. Even though we may all say that that's what we're trying to do, that we're actually trying to follow Christ in our tribal cliff jumping,
and that's what makes it hard.
And that's what's super hard, because everybody has got a great story about it, a great line, I'm being charitable. Everybody's got a great explanation of why the way that they're thinking about this and the way they want their church to talk about this and the way they want to talk about it is a God thing. And so the question becomes, how do you even decipher like what is the actual God thing in the midst of it?
Yeah.
How do you start? Like, so for this, I mean, here's the start. Everybody is made in the image of God.
Okay.
I mean,
we can all agree with that.
That's what I'm hoping that we can start with. Is like that we're all made, that there's none who are greater and none who are less than. I would say, I would say sometimes the messages that are out there, even by the people who were mourning and lamenting, may say things that sound different than that.
Agree.
Right. And that's what
maybe accidentally.
Maybe accidentally.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Cause we'll go ahead.
Well, I think that's where people struggle, is like we all want to, we agree that all people are made in the image of God. But I think if you're in one particular camp and you get one set of videos on your Instagram and TikTok and you about Charlie Kirk, you're going to hear a person who sounds like they don't believe that everybody is made in the equal image of God. That's the message. That some lives matter more than or if nothing else, that some lives are more inferior than others, right? Like they're not quite as good, or they don't line up as well, or they have some pathology about them in the ways that they are constructed and do things that make them less than. And so again, if you're getting one line of the algorithm sending you that's what you're hearing. So then when you see something happen to this child, to child made in the image of God, it's hard for you then to find the ability to mourn, because you've taken in these other things that this person has said. I still don't.
So in this example, the person would see the person as less.
Yes, the person would say, "Oh, because you thought of other people less, I can now think of you less.
Right.
I'm modeling your own thinking for you."
Right.
And I just think that is that's the wrong. I mean, that is. If you, again, Christ follower, I don't know how other people think about it. Some people are eye for an eye, whatever. But if you're a Christ follower, that's not the way it works.
Right.
So if you submitted to Christ and you're saying, I'm trying to figure this out from a Christian standpoint, that is not true. I don't care what the person has said. That doesn't change what God has said about them. Right. So that's a place that we should be able to agree and start from.
We should be able to, but there's this pesky extra requirement on our value statement that we allow to come in, and that's American sensibility, ethnic sensibility, ideological sensibilities. All those things add extra sauce to people's lives in our heads. And
so the meat is, yes, made the child of God, but then
it's almost like the made the child of God is the minimum, not the whole.
Okay,
so we're we can all start with child of God.
It's the protein.
Everybody gets the protein. Right. Everybody gets the same 10 points for being a child of God, but then you get the way it seems like we behave. Well, if you agree with me politically, I'll sprinkle a couple more on your life. If you happen to have the same skin color as me, I'll sprinkle. If we are in the same social class, I'll sprinkle. Do you like the Cowboys? Like
so you could take my sprinkle off
immediately. You don't need that. But the point is, like, we start to bring in these value. Well, we said sprinkles, salt. I was about to say seasonings. I don't know, man.
Whatever.
But we start bringing bring these other things, and next thing you know, you have a hierarchy of value in society. And now you're living and walking things through with this hierarchy. And the scripture is neutralizing that hierarchy on a regular. Christ is constantly calling us to the point that you just made, that your value is because you're made in the image of God. And I believe your value is set by that, and it's set by your life was worth dying for by Christ.
Right.
Those things have happened, and nothing can undo those. So those things write the price of your value. Nothing else can shape that. All this other stuff is ancillary to value. Now, and to the value of life. So when someone like Charlie Kirk gets murdered, whether you agree with him and he had a lot of value to the way that you do things or not, as believers, it's got to be that we lament the loss of precious life, bought for by the blood of Christ and imaged by the Father. And by not just the Father, but by God, by the wholeness of the Trinity.
Yeah. And now, so it goes to that point I think you were talking about even earlier, right? That there is this next piece that also requires, I think, some lament, is that we do sprinkle.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I think that's what's hard too. Like I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about people who are listening right now, maybe who've heard it before, and like they're still not sold. It's still not quite I get you. It's too simple.
It's too soft.
It's too soft. You're not going after because this dude said this or because of that. And you're like, yes. But here's we should also be limiting the fact that our division, our rhetoric, and our sprinkling, if you will, created a scenario where somebody plotted a murder on someone that they didn't even know. Sure. They didn't know this cat personally. They had only heard his rhetoric. They disagreed. They put the sprinkle on of what's valuable and hierarchical. They planned out a murder and did it.
Right.
Can we lament that too? That our political environment has gotten to the point where people are planning murders on people because of what they say.
Right. And that's where the next question I said earlier, I said there's the issue of the murder itself that you got to deal with. And that's kind of what we're talking about right now. And then it's what the murder means.
Yeah.
And for me, while there's a lot of Christian voices who would say this murder means that the Christian voice is under attack.
Right.
That's what it means to some people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what it means to me. What this murder means is this is the state, to the point that you're at. Yeah. This is the state of our politics. That we have politics, that we have gotten to a place where dissenting opinions can lead to murder. Now, it doesn't always lead to murder, but it can.
Not with a gun, but it can lead to Jesus's version of murder, hate, and all that
for
stuff,
sure.
Right?
But it can lead to murder, and I think what Charlie Kirk's death should be doing, and this is my opinion, what it should be doing from an American point of view, as American citizens. I'm speaking as American citizens, not as kingdom citizens at this moment, not as Christ-centered, but as American citizens at the moment. What it should tell us is, hey, it's a kind of harbinger of things to come. This is this is something that if we're going to, this is a feature of the moment we're in. And it's kind of a flare that says, hey, this is who we're becoming. Now, the irony of what I'm trying to tell you is what should be happening to us, we should be saying, whoa, we have created, I use greenhouses a lot in the church where I'm teaching about a space that is facilitating an outcome, facilitating growth. And greenhouses do that, right?
Yeah.
We have built a greenhouse where murder is regular, right?
Yes.
The thing growing in our greenhouse is death, right? And so how did we get here? And I think what would be encouraging, but is not happening, is this look back to say, we've got to figure out how to disagree and hold these conversations without producing murderous greenhouses. But the irony of that is it's actually creating more energy for more death. The energy that's coming out of the conversation, whether it's righteous anger or not, is war. We need to fight more. We need to pick up more weapons, right? And so it's disheartening for me, the way that I see it, that what should be a warning sign that says, hey, things have gotten too far, is more like a launch pad that says we need to do more of this. And it feels like that's where society is going. And the unfortunate thing for me in the midst of all that is some of the voices that are calling for more war, for more fight, are those who would call themselves Christians. Those people. And it's irrelevant for me in a moment like this. It's irrelevant in some ways for me to say whether I agree with your sentiment about what you feel about what Kirk believes. That's his name, Kirk?
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk, yeah. What he believes. My problem is Christ never calls us to war, right? And our response can't be that we're going to pick up our guns and fight each other and create more space for more war. And it feels like a lot of that is coming out of some of those who would call them I don't know if I would call those extreme, but when I'm hearing that out of Christians' voices, that's a statement that has very little to do with your ideology and has a whole lot to do with your methodology for how you're wanting to get what you want done. It cannot be via the picking up of swords and guns, right?
I'll go even further, right? Because I do think that there is an aspect of where you get to that point of where you pick up swords and guns, but I think there's a long trail that gets us there, right? Which is what I think we're being exposed to. We here in Dallas, right? And we've got this equal rights museum down here, and there's this room that's filled with all kind of stories of the multiple genocides that have happened throughout the world. I can't remember the time frame it gives, but it's got Rwanda, it's got Holocaust, and so forth and so on, and it actually outlines the stages that happen before you get to this genocide. How is it possible that in a country that was 93% Christian, in Rwanda, that all of a sudden in a particular month, these tribes were turned against each other, Christians against Christians, and they killed almost 1 million people within a month? How is that possible? Well, one of the things that started with that is just dehumanization. You just dehumanize people, right? It becomes so much easier to kill somebody if you have named them something that is killable. They're cockroaches, right? So that was a term used a lot in Rwandan before the genocide, as he was talking about cockroaches. Well, you don't mind. I grew up in Houston, you know what I'm saying? Like, cockroaches were every day. They fly by and nobody has any problem stepping on a cockroach. They think that's what you're supposed to do. So if that's your mentality, then when you hear somebody talked about as a cockroach, it becomes easier. And over time, you're able to get to the point where you think it becomes easier for you to do that. Now, it's not just about then dehumanization and then you all of a sudden you're ready to go and shoot somebody, right? It has to get... There's something that Jesus understands about, that he talks about in the Sermon on the Mount, this idea of, you have heard it said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy, right? He's like, no, you not only do you love your neighbor, but you love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. Right. This is the answer to a world where everybody ends up blind because they're an eye for an eye. This is the answer to that. Jesus is saying there's something that you are when you decide to be a part and submit to this particular cliff jumper, if you will, group, what we do here is we actually de-escalate those things. We actually turn it on its head. So instead of moving towards this move of allowing hate to come into your life, you move toward love. I can't continue to remember when I was reading Jesus and the Disinherited, Howard Thurman, and there's a great sort of story he tells in there. But he says this thing about hatred. He said, hey, hatred bears deadly and bitter fruit. It is blind and non-discriminating. True, it begins by exercising specific discrimination. This it does by centering upon the persons responsible for the situations which create the reaction of resentment, bitterness, and hatred. But once hatred is released, it cannot be confined to the offenders alone. It is difficult for hatred to be informed as to the object which it gets under its way. So hatred doesn't stop. We start with this idea: I'm going to hate this person, I'm going to hate this group. But once we allow that hatred to come, the group is just the start. Hatred actually has a multiplying effect, that it actually starts moving into other things around you. In fact, in Howard Thurman, in his book, he was talking to a man one time who was white and he's black. And the man tells him, I'm teaching my kids not to hate Negroes. And not because Negroes are good. It's just because I know if I teach my son to hate anything, the hatred cannot be controlled once it's set in motion.
Right.
And so I think that's where we've allowed ourselves to enter into this communication about other people in ways that are hateful. We've allowed it. It's the same thing you saw at the beginning of all the all the world wars, right? The time as soon as the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and people were allowed to hate Japanese, then it became so easy to go now and drop atom bombs on them, right? Because the hatred started. Right. And I think we've been in a season for probably the last 10 years or so, where hatred is
7-8 fermented.
Where hatred is allowed, even in the church. Right. You are seeing these clips of pastors from their pulpits spewing hate about other individuals just because they're not a part of the clique, whether it be they're not a part of their liberal group or not a part of their conservative group. We have allowed hatred to be a part of our rhetoric in the church, and we have not listened to what Christ has engaged us with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very good. I mean, from a social point of view is dehumanization, right? And it's also true of this, and what I'm going to say too, so these aren't mutually exclusive, but in the church is demonization.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So dehumanization from the social point of view. Hey, we get to take you out because you are no longer good for society. In fact, you're neutral, or actually you're a nuisance or a negative to society.
Yeah.
We'll call you rats. We'll call you cockroaches. We'll call you vermin. We'll call you that. The church's version, the quote unquote, the so-called church's version of that is demonization, to say, you are no longer good for the kingdom. In fact, you're neutral to the kingdom, or you are negative to the kingdom, and therefore you are our enemy, and we are supposed to vanquish demons.
Right.
And so now,
and you're using God's name as a demon,
and you're using God's name as in vain.
Yes.
For a campaign that he doesn't have his name on. And so as a result, you have in some churches a comfortability with hatred toward certain persons, because they've been demonized. And in that language, that's not a stretch. Like that's the language that's being said.
You're hearing it.
Yes, like you might hear that today if you tune in to any particular social media post or news report, is that we have moved to demonization, and it is the enemy getting bonus points when that happens, because he doesn't have to continue. If he can get the group to move in a certain way and create the pressure of the group, again, if we can get everyone to jump off the same cliff,
right?
Like he doesn't have to push each one individually. Right. They're going to jump themselves, and it's just extra. And what I'm concerned, whether you believe it is almost, there's a whole nother conversation to be had about whether you believe what Charlie Kirk believed or expounded to his ideologies and all that. I'm less concerned with that. My concern for the church is that we'd be careful about demonization. We haven't even asked ourselves the question of what you just said and remind us about in the Sermon on the Mount. Pray for those who persecute you. Now, there are going to be some people who say Charlie Kirk's death was a persecution. you listening to this, you may agree with that, you may disagree with that. For those of you who agree with that
it was a persecution,
Jesus is challenging you to say, love those who persecute you, bless those who persecute you, pray for those who despitefully use you. His prescription for the response to the persecution is love and bless, bless and pray. Now, so that's your work.
Yeah.
What he didn't say to the Jews who were under the Roman thumb, right? Because Jesus is not talking in a vacuum where he's not in a situation where injustice is happening. He's in a situation where there's some injustices that are happening. And he's saying this in the context of that. So it's not removed. It's his core audience has the same challenge that we have today as we dealing with different types of things. He's telling them that we have to, if you're in that space where that's where you are, you've got to allow Jesus to challenge you in that. Mm-hmm. What does it look like to love, to heed the words of Jesus amidst this persecution? Now, the American and the jungle mentality and the biology, your body, your body flesh. Who's fighting, your flesh who is fighting for the survival of itself.
That's right.
Will tell you that is not the way of survival. And so the way to get forward is to use your power to dominate or to destroy. And so we're going to have to do that. And so your flesh is pushing you in that way. And Jesus is saying, no, the response to persecution. And not only does Jesus say it, but so does Paul say it, does Peter say it, and it's over and over in the New Testament of how we respond to these things. In fact, there's no place in the New. I challenge anyone to tell me there's no place in the New Testament where Jesus says, you know what, the response to persecution is war or is fighting back. You know,
I wrote a chapter that they cut out.
You did?
Yeah, it was Marcus. Chapter Marcus 1.
Marcus 1.
Letter to the Church of Marcus. Marcus is one. Yeah,
it's just the one.
It's like Philemon. It's short.
It's Jude.
And it's literally like, that's what I said.
It could be that. Yeah, just that line. Hey, when you're persecuted, as believers, fight back.
Yeah.
That's not what we see. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen it. You don't have to like that. You don't have to like it.
But you have to understand that.
But if you're going to call yourself a Christian and you're going to heed to what the scriptures say, which is what you're saying Charlie Kirk was doing, that's what you're saying he was doing. Then for those of you who hold to that, then you've got to hold yourself to the things that Jesus called you to, not to the American sensibility, not to the American cultural way of doing things, not to your flesh, not to your group. Mm-hmm. Right? It's got to be what Christ calls you to. And that's got to challenge you. If it doesn't challenge you, then you should not put his name on your campaign.
Get his name out your mouth. Is what
you're saying. Name out your mouth.
And here's what's the fascinating piece to me is, again, I love reading the Bible and continuing to see how it reads me and how it reads the situation of every generation as it comes in contact with it. The situation we're dealing with in America right now is not surprising. In fact, I would say it's typical.
Right.
I would say it's typical. You can go back in history across generations. I don't know how long people think people have been on earth, whatever, and you will find everything we're experiencing right now is typical. It's why I think, again, that you look at the New Testament and what Jesus had to say, and you're like, why is it so short? Because he knew that there's just really a couple of situations that are going to keep coming up over and over again in society. Right. So I'm going to give you, and I think the Sermon on the Mount is like the place that you want to find, like, hey, you want to find out what's going to be coming for you and what you need to do about it, what's going to be typical in every situation. This is going to speak to it. And let's just say war, civil war, battles inside of particular entities we can go, you don't need, I know people trying to take history books out, right? But if you crack open any history book about the world, about the United States, you will find these kinds of internal struggles, whether they go to full civil war or not, you will find them. And Jesus's response is to try to create a people who will de-escalate that.
Right.
Like that's our job in these moments when these typical things come where flesh takes over, is that we are the ones who are supposed to bring a counter narrative that is spirit-led, that is supernatural. We're supposed to bring the Spirit of God in that place to de-escalate it.
Right.
And yet what I'm saying is that we are moving into the flesh piece. We are following the typical. We are typical. I've never wanted to be typical in my entire life. But this is a typical response to flesh and pain. is to respond with more flesh and pain. This is just like we were talking about in our nonviolence episode we did not too long ago. It's the same thing, right? This is the constant thing that we're going to probably have to keep talking about because the church is still living in the space in which it's fighting for its own survival. It is fighting out of fear instead of fighting in faith.
Right. And violence is an option.
And violence is an option.
And it shouldn't be. In
a fear mode.
So easily.
Yeah. In fear mode. And you've said this, Antwuan, like, and it's a hard thing to hear.
Yeah.
Is that I'm going to say it and you can correct me on this, right? This is not what you said. This is how I hear it. I know it. I know we're Americans and we believe to some extent because we've been told and shown throughout the world that our lives are super important. That what we create, what we do, how we live, that our stuff, what we do every single day when we open our eyes and we start doing whatever we do, it is so important, not just to our life, but to the world. Like the world needs me to be able to do what it's going to do. But here's what I'm going to tell you is God does not need you. He loves you. He wants to use you, but he does not need you. In fact, your life sometimes will just be, he is not concerned with with how long you live on this earth because he's already thinking about eternity.
Right.
So your life on this earth is actually to be used for something for God. And what that may be is to be used to experience pain, to demonstrate what it looks like for people who are under Christ to experience pain, to experience trial, and to show other people what it looks like for people under Christ to experience trial. To experience hurt, to experience loss of life, loss of loved ones. I mean, all kinds of things. It's not that God doesn't care and doesn't come in compassion and suffering along with you, but he is thinking eternally. He's not thinking in our mode. It's like I've said before, like, I mean, think about the Israelites in Egypt, 400 years, 400 years of slavery and crying out to God and nothing happened. And we get all of that in the scriptures. It's 2 sentences at the beginning of Exodus. They multiplied and grew in the land. That's literally like 400 years wrapped up. Imagine what 400 years looks like in our American existence. Like America wouldn't even, if the 400 years is the deal and we are in the middle of a non-caring part or a non-biblical story about what God is doing in the world and 400 years is the deal, America could almost fit in twice in that way.
Yeah.
And nothing we would have done would have made the ink, would have had no ink in the Bible. Imagine that. And yet we cry and we shout and we kill and we murder about these things that may not even be a footnote in what God is trying to do across the existence. It's just, it's crazy to me. But we will fight like we are the thing and we are the ones God is using and we are the only ones who can make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think if we bring that kind of ego to it, of course we're going to be offended. Of course we're going to be defensive when someone says something or kills somebody who's a part of our team, of course.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to do with the self-importance of that you're the self-importance.
Did I open up too much of a can on that one?
No. Okay. Well, I mean,
it's a big one.
It could open up this other can that we probably don't have time to get into. But I also think it's interesting. Okay, so we've talked about those who feel like Charlie Kirk represented something Christian and that he got killed and it's a symbol of Christian persecution, and offer a challenge for how to respond to that. But not everybody thinks that way, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody saw Charlie Kirk as someone who represented Christian values, and his death does not, for everyone, mean that he
was martyred for Christendom.
That he was martyred for Christendom. And there are Christians, people who call themselves Christians, who are trying to live devoted lives in discipleship with Christ, who would say that. What would you say to those people? Like how should, what have you seen as helpful or hurtful responses from those people, maybe in some of the things you saw, or
in the ways that those who don't think of him as a martyr and how they might be approaching the conversation right now? I think there is a kind of devaluation of his life period as a human. I do think that there are, here's what I would say too is, because I've been doing more research, I think, on Charlie Kirk, my algorithm has been sending me both of the things now. So I get stuff that he says that I'm like, I actually can't disagree with that thing. That thing. But then the next sentence he says, oh, I can totally disagree with that. Right. But again, I think most of those folks are just hearing the thing that they would disagree with. I just imagine that people aren't not everyone is kind of monolithic in the way that they think in a sense that would, particularly from a Christian standpoint in this, that would disagree with some of your sensibilities. I understand that there is a vessel problem. I think I wrestle with is like, I hear it and it sounds like something I might say, but it's coming out of a vessel that's going to say something that I would not say. Mm-hmm. And so that becomes something that's tense and we had this conversation about dinner table the other day. It's really hard. And that's where the cliff
turns out a certain
correct. And that's where the cliff jumper piece is hard. Cause you're like, doggone it. Like if I didn't know better, I would say this guy sounded like a Christian right here.
Yeah.
But what I understand is that he's not a Christian because he said this over here. Yeah. And I think that humans are not easily described, and easily captured in highlights in headlines.
Yeah.
I don't think they're easily captured that way. And I would imagine if people follow me around, and just took certain things that I said, even on the show or walking around, and they put it in, in particular, music behind it and put somebody talking over it, man, they could paint any kind of picture about me. I'm not saying that that's what's happening. I'm just saying that we've got to be better about recognizing that humans are flawed, mm-hmm. and they're going to say things that are going to be really great and align with God. But then, like Paul says, it's like the thing I know I should do, I don't do. Right. And the thing I shouldn't do, that is the thing I do. So it's just articulating this idea that nobody's perfect and nobody's saying everything right, and nobody's and grace has always been given to humanity. Mm-hmm. And if we think about it, Christianity, again, we talk about it in ideas, and again, this may not be the way everybody thinks about it, but what it seems to be is that sin doesn't have hierarchy. Like it doesn't seem to have hierarchy. Like God is like any kind of sin, like you cannot come in here with anything. I don't care if you're a murderer or if you just called your brother Raka, you know what I mean, or whatever. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter. So even when I hear somebody say things, then I would say, man, that is not the way God is saying it. And that feels like a sinful way of talking about things and people. I still got to go and Jesus still died for them. Well, I needed to say that because he's died for me.
You got to say it.
Because he died for me for something even less than, if you will, or even more.
Yeah.
Right.
Or equal.
Yeah.
I get in trouble. Not trouble, but it's always a bit shocking when I'm I've done some young adult teachings, and every once in a while I'll say Jesus died for Hitler.
Yeah,
that Hitler could be saved if he just
Lord Jesus.
And that's really hard for it's hard for people.
I'm sweating.
And for some reason people think, Antwuan, does that mean you agree with Hitler? I'm like, no, all I said was was that Hitler is part of the world in John 3:16.
Yeah.
For God so loved the world that he gave it. He's part of that. He didn't anyone. He didn't whosoever. Yeah, he's in the whosoever.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk's in the whosoever.
Mm-hmm. And praise God, I'm in the whosoever.
And so are you and I. So there is that grace that's extended to all. There is you talked about some of the challenges. One of the things
I always say like this: love has no loopholes.
Yeah.
Right. Like unfortunately, as much as it would be really great for us to be able to go to Jesus and go, but what about this? Right. Well, we've seen that in the scriptures constantly.
We do. Yeah. How many times should I?
Yeah. And who is my neighbor?
Right.
Yeah, who's my neighbor?
Who's my neighbor?
Yeah.
All those things. Yeah. What, the Gentile, can they really get the Spirit of God? Or they can just be in the room, right? We're the ones that are really spiritual.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is it time for us to make a kingdom of Israel now, God? I know you told us to go make disciples of all nations, but can we make a nation to do it? He's like, y'all need to be witnesses in every nation. And you're not making a big one. We're going to end up ending again probably on this witnesses because we have hit it. We hit that so many times. But you got to.
But with it's got to be a reminder.
There's a reason Jesus said it right before he left.
In a moment where violence is so ready to be used by a block of people who call themselves Christians. Man, we have to be reminded. I have to assume that if you say you're a Christian, mm-hmm. then I can't judge whether you are or not, but what you have given me permission to do
that's good.
As a Christian is to take the scriptures and put them in front of you.
That's right.
That's what you've done when you say you're a Christian.
Quick. Put the fullness of the scriptures, not a scripture, a phrase, the contextualized fullness of the scriptures has got to be wrestled with. The meta narrative, particularly, and the mission.
And we're supposed to wrestle with it. Like everybody's at different levels in their faith journey, and different pieces. So convictions will move and shift as we grow in our spiritual formation.
Yeah.
But if you call yourself a Christian, so if the conservative party block and there are elements of the liberal party block that would say this is a Christian
initiative, this is
a Christian influenced viewpoint.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. The liberal would probably say that Jesus says love the poor, love the immigrant.
That's right.
That these are not me saying this. This is a Christian influence thing. I believe we should have this policy because the scriptures say this. There are people on the liberal who would say that. There are people who would say that on the conservative. Whoever it is, right? Wherever your deal is, if you call yourself a Christian, then the scriptures have to be put in front of you, all of them, as has been said. And the scriptures doesn't allow us to respond the way that we've been responding. I do think that the people who feel less connected, their Christianity feels less connected to Charlie's.
Yeah.
Right. They would say he's not the sort of Christianity that I ascribe to.
Yeah.
Those persons, I think those persons can be a good check. Like for us, like in Luke 4, the crowd is ready to throw is ready to throw Jesus off the cliff. Not just one or two people, like they all firm it. The mob mentality, like our proclivity for mob work, for group think, for group stuff, and it's such easy to peer pressure. Like this all feels like 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old stuff that we just haven't fully
America is an adolescent country
fully learned yet, right? And we don't know how. We don't. For many people, it's hard to just break from the group and live in a particular type of way. But so sometimes these could be good checks. You're a pastor, and it doesn't sound like that, because if you're going to demonize people, then anyone who disagrees with you is a demon that should be fought against, not a potential iron that could be sharpening you as an iron, right? I don't want your iron. And I realize that can be tricky and difficult. You know, there are some pastors who I don't want to follow, who I'm not going to listen to. Their theology I disagree with. But a lot of this is not theology. It's like some of it is theology, but a lot of it is just ideology. It's political theory, is economics. And some of those things are things that can be wrestled with, not demonized over. And but that's not how we do it, you know.
Right.
Groupthink protects my own it protects me. I make the case that it's a psychological subconscious me. I'm protecting me when I protect someone who looks like me.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love. And so it's a very ego, self-driven way of engaging in policy and people work, versus a kingdom mindset that says Christ is how I will choose to see the world.
Yeah.
And I will see the Christ in certainly my brothers and sisters in Christ. Right. And even when we disagree, I'm going to live and work through what it looks like to live in that space.
Yeah. I think as we kind of wrap up here, I think you said something that sparked, maybe I'm saying it for my own protection. But you mentioned this Luke 4 passage, which is, you know, Jesus' sort of coming out party, if you will, for his ministry, right? He opens the scroll and he talks about, I came to, you know, bring good news to the poor and sight to the blind, all those things. And then, of course, what you're talking about is the crowd. They hear this and they're like, fine. Oh my gosh, this is the Messiah, right?
He's come, us.
And he's coming and he's going to do things for us, the Israelites, the Hebrews. He's going to, yes, this is about us. And Jesus is like, oh, I can hear you guys saying like, oh, good, he's finally come to do something for us. But I just need to remind you, like, I'm actually here for everybody. I'm not here just for you. Just like you saw in the Old Testament with Elijah. Right? And Elisha, like I'm going to actually not just help my people, but I'm actually going to help the people who have persecuted you. And it was that was the thing. That was the thing that launched them into, I'm about to throw this dude off the side of a cliff.
They were excited when they thought it was for him.
When they thought it was when he was engaging in group dynamics.
Yes.
And about the group.
That's correct.
Right. But when he decided like, hey, I'm not actually jumping off the cliff with you. I'm gonna I'm gonna go help other people before they jump off cliffs. I know this analogy is dying right now,
especially since there's a cliff jump. Right?
We're not going to use this analogy. Right, exactly. It completely fell apart. I get it, but the idea is, I'm not here just for you. I'm not here just for our group. I'm here for every group, and that was so dangerous to them, and so despicable that they went to murder instantly.
Like there was no.
This is why it's typical.
Instantly.
This is why it's typical.
This is what this passage is so interesting to me, because in what feels like a series of small moments. Yeah. Yes, a biblical second. They didn't go home and confer and argue with each other about it. The entire room decided what?
Yeah. Verse 23 through 27 is Jesus explaining that he's here for other people. And 28 says, all the people in the synagogue were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of town, and took him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built in order to throw him off the cliff. They had to walk it out. It wasn't just that they beat him, like they hit him. They had to get a group, and they carried him, and they had to walk for a minute with this anger.
It's a mob.
It's a mob.
And you could go further and say, "Wow, the scripture he's reading is about the poor," but we're not doing that. No,
we're not messing with all that.
But it's the instantness of it, right? Man. So that's where we are.
And I think what I think about with that, in that demonization and immediately going towards, again, this is not necessarily about Jesus, but just this demonization. I'm reminded what Dr. Martin Luther King talks about in his even the tenets of nonviolence, where he tries to remind those who are in the midst of this strife, in the battles that they're doing for justice and mercy and kindness and humbly with God, all those things, Micah 6:8, that you're doing it, that you have to remember you're dealing with a human being here, a human being that perhaps is being led by enemy forces, right? There's an enemy that is not the human. There is a much stronger enemy behind all of that. And that's who you take your vitriol toward. Right. Not the human that may be in cahoots and being led by and being influenced by this enemy, like all of us have been, but you're actually going after the enemy itself. He says it's not that you're going after the person who's practicing injustice, but you're going after injustice itself. So when I think about Charlie Kirk, it's kind of my last thing I'm thinking about. Is like, yes, I mourn the man, I mourn the human that was created, I mourn the family that was destroyed, and the repercussions of that for these kids and whatnot forever, right? It's not the thing I don't more, the thing I'm going to constantly have to deal with, though, is the things that he said. Those ideas are still around, and the negative ideas, the hate, if you will, if you said that there was hate speech or whatever, like any of those things, that hate is still here because there's still an enemy moving that work forward. It's not about Charlie Kirk. It's not about a human being. It's about the ideas and the concepts that are continuing to be pushed forward by the enemy through us. And I say us because we're all guilty of that. And so we have to start pointing. We have to stop doing what is the adolescent thing, which is just pointing at the person, and do some deep work and looking at the concepts behind and engaging that. Even as you engage the person, you're constantly challenging the ideas without having to demonize them in the midst of their ideas.
Yeah. And I love that. And the sort of final thought I have is, again, like you, mourn the death of Charlie Kirk and the impact it's having on his family. Praying that God will be present in their next steps. That the enemy doesn't take a hold of this bitterness and this grief that has been produced by this murder, and that the enemy doesn't get a foothold here, and suddenly is able to move things forward. Maybe I'll hold to move things forward in a negative way. But then there's a second morning, and that second morning is the witness of the church for me. And as the collective Christian voices in America respond to this, we have to be careful. Christ's view to us was to be witnesses to the rest of the world, and to make disciples. And the witness is the thing that people want to see, right? And what are they seeing? When the Christian church is quote unquote persecuted or believe they're persecuted, how do we respond? Is it what Jesus would want us to? Is that the sort of witness that we'd want to be? I am praying. I think it's safe for me to say this. I have been dissatisfied with the witness of the church for the last 10 years where it comes to politics. I feel like it has only caused us to cause Jesus to look less like who he really is. and it has been a disinvitation to many people instead of an invitation. And this is another scenario where I think the church has an opportunity to live counterculturally, think counterculturally, and I think all the energy is headed in the wrong direction, even if it's righteously so, right? The scripture doesn't even tell us the persecution. He didn't say whether the persecution was right or wrong. It's just persecution, right? And he tells us how to respond to it. So I'm not even getting into whether I agree or disagree with the energy. What I'm saying is how we're choosing to respond. Isn't it? This is an important moment. And Christians are leading this country in one way or the other. We're either leading them to violence or we're leading them to peace. And that is a real thing. Christians right now have a voice in this country. And Christians, people who call themselves Christians, are leading us either into war or into peace, and so it's a little bit of a struggle.
I get it. Well, man, hey, good convo. And I don't know how everybody's hearing all of that, but I hope you understand that this is kind of what we do here at Color Commentary. We want to put on different lenses and try to look at the things that people are talking about in the areas of Christianity, culture, and race, and just trying to figure out how do we put God's name in the midst of this well. And it's a hard thing sometimes, because there's hurts out there that are real, and there's real ways in which people have been impacted. And sometimes it can feel like it's kind of this Pollyanna kind of talk, you know what I mean? Like, it's about the scriptures. But if we can't hold on to the truth of the scriptures, man, what are we holding on to? What power are we holding on to try to help us maneuver through these situations and try to understand what we're seeing? And so that's what we hope, you know what I mean, as you maneuver through this world, that you'll just kind of continue to put on these different colored lenses, that you'll be able to see through and practice the idea of kind of looking through what does it look like from somebody else's perspective. And that's why as we continue to engage with you, we tell you to stay colored.